If you're just tuning into these Solitaire tutorials, this video shows the end product of the very first formula that allows us to set up a game of Solitaire. You could actually start with this video and work backwards to any previous skills that you'd like more information on. Last time, we left off drawing one card at a time and placing it into a random column or pile. I'm going to be showing how with a single click, all of that can be repeated. In coding, this is what's known as a loop. In PowerApps, there's a looping function called ForAll, but I argue it does a lot more than just looping. First, we're going to make a copy of our previous button for drawing one card. Our formula is going to be based on this one. Let's give it a description. We'll call it reset game. In the formula, I'm going to add a space at the top by pressing Shift Return. ForAll is going to wrap around this entire thing. It's called ForAll, but I like to think of it as for each instead. We are finally going to be using the setup table that we had created in the first video. What this essentially means is, for each of the things inside the setup table, it's going to select a random card. So there's 28 things in the setup table. It's going to repeat selecting a random card 28 times. It's time to update what kind of information we want for the column, the visibility, and the position of a card. I'll start with the column. Last time I selected a random column, 1 through 7. This time, I'm going to use the information in the setup table to tell it which column to place it in. And I'll do the same for the visibility column. For the position, I'm going to look inside all the cards that have been played in this column. So filter cards played, where the column equals the specified column. Count up all of the cards that are in that column, add 1 to it. So we're pretty much placing a card at the end of the pile. In other words, the highest ranking card. Let me illustrate what's going on here. On the left, I have the cards table. In the middle, I have the setup table. On the right-hand side, I'm going to be showing you the collection, cards played. The ForAll function is going to repeat selecting a random card for each record or row inside setup. But besides just repeating a function, it's providing information on what to do for each. So if I pick one card, ID number 1, it places it in column 1, makes it visible, and places it in position 1. I continue selecting a random card. It uses the corresponding information in the setup table, and it calculates a position. I continue selecting a random card. Each random card drawn uses the corresponding information in the setup table. So it's a loop that provides more information. Let's hope this works. We'll preview, click the button, and bam! Now you can celebrate. Wait a minute. I noticed that there's only 28 cards drawn. What about the rest of the deck? What do we have to do for those cards? Let's go ahead and solve that now. For the remaining cards, we won't need to use ForAll. All of the cards left are going to be placed in column 0. So you don't have to use ForAll to specify a different column for each one. ForAll is not necessary here. We can do this all in one step. I could actually take the existing formula there, and I'll just change what I set for column, visible, and position. I'll start with column. This column will be column 0, which is my deck. All the cards will be false, meaning face down until they draw them. I made a mistake here in this video. For the position, I placed all cards at position 0. It really doesn't make a difference, but we could actually auto-number each of the cards as I did before. Do you remember in the second video where I separated clear and collect? Well, let's put that clear function back in. I can't use clear and collect together when I'm setting up the game. Otherwise, each time that I draw a card, it's going to clear the cards that I've already drawn. That doesn't make sense. Let me break down this formula for you. We're filtering all the cards that haven't been played yet, giving them additional information for column, face up or face down and position, shuffle them, pick the first one, collect it, repeat this 28 times for the setup. Then, anything that hasn't already been played, collect it to column 0, make it face down. I said before that it doesn't really matter what position the cards in the deck are, because the formula that we have just selects the first one anyway, so the cards will be drawn in order. But let's just keep things consistent. We'll go ahead and copy the numbering for the position of cards in the setup. This means find all the cards that have been dealt in this column. For our purposes, we want column 0 for the deck. Count them up, then add 1. Cards in the deck are now in order. Let's go ahead and test this out. You'll see that instead of 28 cards, we get all 52. At this point, the formula is pretty much done. I'm just going to make some changes to make things neater. I'm going to sort this gallery to make sure that all the cards in this pile are in the order by the position. I don't want to have a bug where the user selects a card out of order. Remember that debugging panel I asked you to make? Now that we've finished our formula, we'll go ahead and place it into a toggle in the debugging panel. I'll copy the formula from the button, select everything, Control-C, click inside the debugging panel, insert a control, a toggle. Let's make the toggle stretch all the way across the debugging panel. I set its width to the parent.width. We'll make this toggle more descriptive. We'll go ahead and call this one Reset Game. I really appreciate how the PowerApps staff added in a label for the toggle. Next, I change its onCheck property. I paste in the formula from the button. The toggle is going to listen for a command. The original Reset Game button is going to reset a variable. So it's going to turn this variable that I'm calling Reset Game. When that rings true, it will flick this toggle on because I'm setting the default property of this toggle to Reset Game. When that becomes true, the onCheck property activates. And I'm going to add in one line of code here to return that variable to false so that I can trigger it again. I'll clear the cards played. When I click Reset Game, you'll see that the toggle flickers true to false. So it activates, performs the actions, and then it deactivates. I like to store my actions inside toggles. This way, I can trigger that action from many different controls. So if I wanted to reset the game from an image, or if I wanted to reset the game from an icon, I can do that in addition to using the button. All I would have to do is just put in that one line of code. Set Reset Game to true. Congratulations, you completed a very complicated formula. If you'd like to go back to a previous video and see what's happening inside each of those steps, you can do that. Or you could watch an upcoming video where I summarize all of the skills that had taken place in the previous video so far. Thank you for watching. Make sure to subscribe to find the next step in creating your own Solitaire app.